This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6, and by the time you're watching this video, I have put it back in its box and it's being placed back on the shelf for someone else to buy, because while this phone is really cool and you can see it in action right there with Asphalt Legends Unite, including the really cool feature where you can split the screen in half, it just wasn't working out for me. And so in this video, I'm going to go over my experience using the Galaxy Z Fold, mainly for gaming and content creation, or at least trying to, for about 1 week. And I hope you enjoy the Asphalt Legends Unite gameplay in the background. So like I said, by the time you're watching this video, it's returned, and I'm definitely going out and buying the iPhone 16 Pro Max, at least where I can find stock of it near me as soon as I can, because yeah, I had a couple of issues with the Galaxy Z Fold. Firstly though, I do want to talk about the positives, because this big screen was just phenomenal to look at. It was bright, it was fairly high resolution, it was 120 Hertz, which is really awesome. Unfortunately, a majority of the games that I played just didn't support it, which kind of will get into my point later. But in the apps that did have 120 Hertz support, it was so nice and refreshing. Now, for a normal user, they probably wouldn't notice, but I've been using PC monitors with high refresh rates for a very long time. So going back and forth between my 60 Hz iPhone 12 Pro Max and my 144 Hz 4K PC monitor was a little jarring. So it was definitely nice to have that upgraded refresh rate in my pocket. The other really cool thing was the pen support. I did end up buying the pen that would support the folding devices. You have to buy a specific one, otherwise it will scratch the plastic screen on the front, which is another detriment to the phone, but I knew that going in. But either way, the pen support was really awesome. I did actually end up using it quite a bit, where maybe I would forget a paper somewhere and I would need to take quick notes on a PDF or something like that. It was really quite useful. And yes, I know you can use styluses with your normal phone, at least some of them, but it's just too small of a screen, whereas this folding phone, you could unfold it and it would be more of the size of a piece of paper, or at least a small notebook, where it would actually make sense to use a stylus. And the features on the phone that supported the stylus input were pretty robust as well. So the stylus was really honestly useful for productivity. Of course, you could do the whole multi-window thing, which was fairly useful, but I really did just enjoy playing my games in a much higher resolution and bigger screen than what I'm used to, especially because I'm not an iPad gamer. I just always run my phone because I don't really see the point of carrying around an iPad when I usually do have a laptop or desktop with me anyway. So if I'm out and about, the only thing I have on me is my phone, and to have the ability to keep a normal phone with me, but you know, be able to unfold it and essentially have an iPad mini size screen in my pocket was really awesome. So the experience itself, just the hardware, the screens, was really good. The downfalls really started when I tried to get into the depths of Android, and also just the lack of polish from Samsung. Now, for context, yes, I have used Android devices in the past. In fact, many videos on this channel were recorded on an LG G8X. So it's not like I'm brand new to Android or I have no idea what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm a very tech dude. I run Hackintoshes. I know a little bit about programming, hardware, laptop disassembly and repair. I know my way around computers. And so it wasn't that I couldn't get used to Android, but it was just that iOS is so smooth and polished that a lot of the mistakes and issues that I'm seeing on Android were just so frustrating. For example, on the iPhone, a lot of the buttons are usually in the same place, despite the screen not having any actual buttons. On Android, of course, you have gesture support, but it seemed like it would change depending on the app that I was in. Sometimes the left side of the screen would be back, sometimes the right. Sometimes it would be swiping and I would get a reply to a message instead of going back. So it was really frustrating that every single app behaved differently. Now, in addition to the lack of consistency between different apps and user interfaces, there was also a complete lack of reliability. For example, when I ask Siri to do something, yes, at the moment it may not be as diverse as some of the other assistants. I know that it's going to do that function. If I ask Siri to set an alarm, it will remind me of that alarm. With Google Assistant, there were a couple of times where I asked it to set a short alarm or timer, and after I checked my watch and went, oh crap, it's actually the time I need to go back and do something, what happened to my phone? I opened my phone and the timer just vanished. It went into the ether. I have no idea where that happened. And so there were definitely a couple of times where I experienced moments like this where I asked maybe Google Assistant, or I tried to enable a setting and nothing would happen. Again, I don't know if this is just my specific device, but I feel like this is an Android thing in general, considering I have experienced this a couple of times on my LG as well. Now that's just a general Android thing, and I can probably get used to that over some time. So why did I not like the Fold 6 specifically? Well, that unfortunately comes down to Samsung, and it also comes down to my very specific use case. I recognize that probably for 99% of people, they wouldn't notice any of the things that I'm talking about. However, what I really value is being able to play a video game and record it at the same time. Now, ever since the iPhones were really starting to catch on, Apple has always built in dedicated video encoding silicon into their processors. So if you were recording a video or if you were screen recording, you would really see no issues with performance, and the screen recording, depending on the app you used, would come out buttery smooth. Or if you were sending your phone screen to a compatible Mac, your phone would still see no slowdown whatsoever, despite all of the processing being done on device. Now, I realized that in the past, Android phones never really could keep up with the iPhone in terms of performance, but from some of the numbers that I was seeing with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which that name is just awful, I was honestly expecting a lot better. I knew that the Fold 6 couldn't really keep up with the current iPhone in gaming, but I figured that by now, these Android devices would have dedicated hardware accelerated video encode and decode silicon that would make screen recording a breeze. And I did talk to some fellow Asphalt creators about this, and they've said that they didn't really have any issues screen recording on device while playing Asphalt Legends Unite. And I tried all the different apps. I even tried the Android debugging software for Mac and PC to get that screen recording on my computer, but all of the processing was still being done on device. And unfortunately, what that meant was horrendous, and I mean horrendous, slowdown. Right now, you're seeing a screen recording directly from the Z Fold 6. And it might be hard to tell on YouTube because of compression, but on my end, what I'm seeing is terrible frame drops, lots of stuttering, and the bit rate is incredibly low for such a high resolution screen. Now, I record my iPhone 12 Pro Max as it comes off of QuickTime player from my Hackintosh. So that means it's at a 1440p equivalent resolution at 60 frames per second, and it looks pretty much uncompressed. I know it's just a high bitrate, but it looks really, really nice. Whereas on the Samsung device, you can see that depending again on YouTube compression, the bitrate is really not that great. So unfortunately, I didn't really have an easy solution for screen recording this device, and that's really, really important. And yes, I could go out and buy an external capture card, but by the time we're talking about 1440p 60 FPS, we're talking about well above $100, extra dongles, HDMI cables, USB-C to HDMI adapters, things like that. Then I'd have to get another capture card because I need one for my camera while I stream and blah, blah, blah. It was just getting complicated. Whereas with my iPhone, I plug it into my computer over USB and it just works. Not to mention that because I do live in the United States, everyone around me does predominantly use iPhone. And what that means is iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, those things are incredibly important. And I do know that there are alternatives on Android that do have some functionality. For example, I did use a method to forward iMessages from my Mac and from my old iPhone to my Android device. And while I did get reports of people using it flawlessly online, and I even talked to seemingly a developer of it, and they were just saying that they didn't really see a lot of the issues that I was having. For whatever reason, my phone was constantly being disconnected from the network, and over the course of just a few days, I missed dozens of texts from very important people in my life. And yeah, unfortunately, they use iMessage, but they only had my phone number, and they weren't used to updating their iPhone every year. They're not tech people, so they didn't have RCS support either. and of course the whole green bubble, blue bubble stigma does exist in my area. So that last part definitely sounds like more of an excuse to go back to an iPhone, which is kind of fair. I was very dedicated, and during this week I spent a lot of time setting up the Galaxy Z Fold exactly how I wanted it to, compensating for the things that I lost from the iOS ecosystem. But unfortunately, it did just come down to performance. I was just disappointed. I really thought after all of these years, Snapdragon would be able to catch up with Apple in terms of raw performance, but that just isn't the case. One quick thing that I want to interject in this section about performance is that while the screen was either folded to the outside screen where the resolution is a lot smaller than the inside screen, or if I was running the app or game in a split view mode where of course the screen resolution was essentially cut in half, the games of course ran a lot faster and up to my standards in terms of smoothness and responsiveness. However, I can't really capture just that one section. I have to capture the entire screen when I'm recording, and thus if I'm cutting that resolution in half, well, I'm cutting the resolution and cutting that pixel count in half. So I can't really run it in a smaller screen and then be able to get that performance while screen recording. And it also means that, well, at that point, I'm just running the game as if it were a normal phone. And unfortunately for my very, very specific workflow of screen recording a mobile device on Mac software, well, there just isn't really a way around beating the iPhone. So I'm going back to iPhone. I'm probably going to get the 16 Pro Max. It does mean that I'm going to lose out on my jailbreak, and it does mean I'm going to lose out on customization and the ability to install any app I want, which was nice. But then again, on Android, there were some things I was looking for that I couldn't find any solution to, so it didn't seem like that mattered to me anyway, because the solutions I was looking for didn't have an app. So yeah, that was a little unfortunate to discover about Android as well. But either way, I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you have a folding Android device, maybe you have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, the OnePlus Open, I believe, is one of the other folding phones, or maybe you have a Galaxy Z Flip or Fold. Let me know how you are enjoying it in the comment section down below. Again, I did genuinely enjoy the time I had with this device. The only problem was the one thing that really mattered to me, and that was gaming. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good one.